Boiler Dowd from the Boiled Sports Handsome Hour Quickcast Network. I'm your host. It's good to see you. Hope your weekend went well. Mom, thanks for watching. Last week, a little over a week ago, I talked quickly about the amazing coaching job that I thought Jeff Brom and company had done last year to get to just 7 wins. But some people might have balked at that idea that 6 or 7 wins isn't anything that's to write home about. And I understand that idea. In this era of college football, 6 or 7 wins really doesn't say much at all about a team or a coach, because a lot of times the schedules are pretty soft, pretty loaded up with garbage. But last year, some things happened that made that 6 or 7 win record noteworthy. Thanks to martinvintage.com for sponsoring today. Martin Vintage, where you'll get soft, comfortable t-shirts that they'll feel great on, you'll look great, you'll get compliments. Martin Vintage, enter Boiled at checkout. Right off the bat, remember Markell Jones hurt his knee. That was versus Louisville on a play that he fumbled, which wasn't the best thing in the world. But right off the bat, you lost one of the guys that many people in the league outside of the Purdue family thought, this guy's a pretty big difference maker. He's a guy that could make some noise for an all-conference type of season. And he was hurt and put out for a couple weeks right away. And then Tario Fuller stepped in, right? Tario Fuller looked excellent. Right off the bat, he looked like a guy that was an all-conference type of player. In fact, I think he was on pace. He was leading the conference, or actually was in second in the conference for yards per game, just tearing things up. And then he got hurt, a bit of a mystery injury, right? Everybody thought he'd come back quickly. I think he hurt his foot. There was talk of surgery earlier, then they said they were going to wait on surgery, and then they said he'd be back. And I've gone back and reviewed a couple articles that talked about, yep, we think he'll go this week, and then he just never came back, and it just kept happening until he was finally put on the shelf permanently. After Fuller, Richie Worship was hurt. That was way back in the season. That was probably 5 or 6 weeks after that, with an ACL that put him out obviously right away. David Blau, that gruesome foot injury. So you lose the guy who starts your season at quarterback, well, one of the starters, he and Sindelar, with a horrible injury. McCollum, the starting linebacker, was out for close to a month with an injury. Sparks, Hunt, Bentley, all missed games, and Herdman, as well as Hopkins, had injuries kind of nicking them up the whole time. I think Herdman actually missed a couple games, whereas Hopkins just missed part of games. And then you had the self-inflicted wounds of the targeting penalties. I counted 4, 3 or 4 targeting penalties that put players out for at least a half. The whole point of this exercise, this thought exercise, is to say that there were some pretty strong headwinds last year in Purdue's personnel, and Brom and company still managed to cobble together a good season in which Purdue played at a pretty high level and beat some pretty good teams. On top of that, let's not forget, like I said, this was coming off of an era of Purdue football that was historically bad. Darrell Hazel and his teams were looked at as really tragically bad, even in a program that historically is about a 55% winner. That's not good, obviously. And Hazel getting the team and the program into the dumps so quickly was noteworthy, and then Brom pulling them out of it was also noteworthy. Another thing about that team last year, if you go back in the Wayback Machine, it's kind of tough. Your memory might be better than mine, but what I remember last year, like the first thing I think of is that great performance in the Bowl and how Purdue's receivers made big catches when they needed it. There were some drops, but let's not forget that receiving corps couldn't catch anything at the beginning of the season. Anything. And so Brom was trying to put together an offense, really a one-dimensional offense, and just have dump passes and things that were super easy to catch for these receivers, because they were not better than a lot of high school cores at the start of the season. At the end of the season, they looked pretty respectable, and they looked like a team that could actually move the ball and could do some different things. But man, how many times did we see last year wide open receivers drop balls for no good reason other than they didn't have the technique down, they didn't have the concentration down, and they just didn't look like Big Ten receivers. The coaches did a good job getting those guys up to speed, and now you have guys coming in to fortify, returning guys that looked pretty good last year and had figured a few things out, and you have a program that there is a lot of reason to have optimism about. A few weeks ago, or a little bit more than that, Jay talked about how he thought 10 wins was exactly what this program needed and what it would do this year. I'm going to argue soon, I'm going to do a post maybe with words, not just video, that talks about an 8-win season would not only be fantastic, but it would be really, really good for the program on a lot of levels. I think 10 wins would almost assure that Jeff Brom would have a Brinks truck of money dropped on his front step by one of the big programs. Something not different than what we saw from Jimbo Fisher last year going to Texas A&M, which there's no way Purdue can compete with that. No way. And if those rules are going to happen, if programs are going to say, this is our guy, and the programs that have almost limitless money, there's no way Purdue can compete. But I will say there is a bit of hope, because it sure seems like Jeff Brom likes Purdue. It sure seems like he and Babinski get along well. And all the peripherals, from his son loving to be on Purdue's campus to seeing them at specific events just kind of doing their thing, shows me that there's a bit of a relationship growing between the university and the coach, and his staff seems to be loyal to him, which is also great. So there's a lot of reason for optimism. That said, man, we just never know. I want to enjoy this while I can. I'm excited about the upcoming season, and I will say that, like I said, my prediction of 7-8 wins is an awfully good place for this program to be coming into the season. Thanks for listening today. This is Boiler Doubt. This has been a Handsome Hour Quick Cast. Have a great day. BS all the time.